I never thought betrayal had a sound until I heard my wife laughing about it. A laugh that wasn't joy but cruelty sharpened into something that sliced me open. I froze by the kitchen door, hidden in the shadows, while her words drifted toward me like venom carried on air. "He's nice," Laura told her sister, "but he's broke. In the divorce, I'll get everything." They both laughed, as if my life, my love, my years of effort were a bad joke told at my expense. That night, the house felt colder than a tomb. I dialed my brother's number with trembling fingers, though it had been 7 bitter years since we last spoke. "My name is Robert. I'm 33, a welding instructor at a technical institute. Not a glamorous career, not one that fills bank accounts, but I love it. Watching young hands transform raw steel into something permanent, something that will outlast them, it makes me proud. I live in a small but sturdy house. In the garage rests my 1967 Mustang, rebuilt bolt by bolt with my own hands. Those things matter to me. And until that night, so did my marriage. Laura was a graphic designer, successful, earning far more than me. I believed we were partners, building a life together. I believed wrong. It was a Friday, the kind of Friday where exhaustion gnaws at your bones. I came home dreaming only of a cold beer and silence. Dropping my backpack by the door, I shuffled toward the kitchen. Then I heard voices. My wife's and her sister Brenda's. I almost turned back upstairs, but something in Laura's tone rooted me to the floor. I edged closer. "He doesn't suspect?" Brenda teased. "Not a thing. He trusts me too much. I even had him sign papers months ago. Told him they were for taxes." Laura's voice dripped with satisfaction. Poor idiot. Their laughter rang again, cruel and bright, echoing down the hallway until it felt like the walls themselves were mocking me. Divorce. Betrayal. Humiliation. And not whispered regrets or hidden shame. No, they celebrated it. I gripped the refrigerator handle so hard my knuckles turned white. They weren't just planning to leave me. They wanted to strip me of everything. The house I'd repaired with my weekends, the savings scraped together with discipline, even the car that carried my sweat and pride in every restored detail. To them, I wasn't a husband. I was prey. When Brenda finally left, I walked in as though nothing had happened. Laura stood at the sink, sleeves rolled, soap bubbling at her wrists. She smiled sweetly. "Hi, love. How was your day?" Her words stabbed sharper than a knife because they carried no guilt, no crack in her mask. "Fine," I lied, voice flat. "I'm tired, going to bed." Upstairs, I stared at the ceiling all night. Sleep never came. My thoughts circled like vultures. How long had she been planning this? What had I signed? Her laugh replayed, each echo heavier, pressing me deeper into despair. Laura didn't just want out. She wanted me ruined. By dawn, I fled to my workshop. Sparks from the welder flared against the steel in my hands, but no fire could burn away the cold inside me. I replayed everything, searching for an escape. Laura had the money, the lawyer, the plan. Against her, I was a cornered man with nothing but calloused hands and broken trust. A public defender? A joke. She'd devour me alive in court. Then another thought surfaced. Aaron. My older brother. The golden child turned high-powered attorney. We hadn't spoken in 7 years. Our last conversation ended in shouted insults, accusations about wasted lives and misplaced pride. He called me small-minded. I called him soulless. That was the last time we looked each other in the eye. And yet, here I was, staring at his name on my phone screen, my thumb hesitating above the call button. What if he laughed at me? What if he hung up without a word? But I had no choice. I pressed the number. "Hello, who is this?" His voice was clipped, metallic, the voice of someone who had buried the past. "Aaron, it's me, Robert." Silence. A silence so long I almost ended the call myself. Finally he spoke, cold as ever. "What do you want?" Haven't heard from you since. I need your help. My words cut through him, urgent, desperate. It's serious. And then I told him. Every word I overheard, every laugh that shredded my pride, every betrayal Laura had woven in secret. I didn't soften the truth. I bled it out. It wasn't the humiliation that crushed me most. It was the betrayal. Betrayal has a taste, bitter and metallic, like blood in the mouth after a fight. Gumo listened, silent and immovable, his face carved into stone. When I finally stopped speaking, he leaned back, eyes half-shadowed, and said only, "Give me a day, I'll dig." That was it. No promise, no warmth. Just a pause that left me uncertain whether he was offering help or merely observing my downfall. Still, some small weight lifted from my chest. For the first time in weeks, I felt I might not be entirely alone in this war. The rest of the day, I buried myself in the workshop. My hands were black with grease as I bent over my Mustang. Each bolt I tightened, each line of chrome I polished, wasn't just mechanical labor, it was defiance. That car wasn't a machine. It was my testament, the years of sweat I had poured into something tangible. Laura could flash her polished lies, buy herself a lawyer with the precision of a scalpel, but I wasn't going to let her rip the marrow out of my life without a fight. That night, I crept back into the house with the care of a thief. She was waiting in the living room, the glow of her laptop screen illuminating her face. To anyone else, she looked absorbed in design sketches, her profession, her passion. But to me, every keystroke was another plot against me. "Long day?" she asked, her lips twisting into that counterfeit smile that now sickened me. "Yes," I answered, flat as stone, and climbed the stairs before her eyes could cut deeper into me. I locked myself in the guest room, pretending to review notes. In truth, I ransacked drawers, hunting for scraps of salvation. Receipts for the house, the roof, the paint, the kitchen I rebuilt with my own hands. Invoices for every part of the Mustang, the rebuilt engine, the imported tires. Proof of effort, proof of existence. Evidence that what Laura sought to steal had not fallen from the sky but been carved out of my bones. By morning, my nerves were taut as wires. I arrived at the cafe before 9. Gumo was already there, draped in success. Tailored suit, gleaming watch. For a second, I hesitated. He was the same man, yet changed. But when he looked up, his eyes carried something unfamiliar. Concern. "Robert," he said, rising to shake my hand. "No hugs. We weren't those men." I slid a folder of receipts across the table. "This is what I've got. I don't know if it matters, but it's all mine." He nodded, flipping through the stack with quick precision. Then he opened his laptop. The screen made my stomach turn to ice. A bank statement. Laura's name. Nearly $47,000. Small deposits over 6 months. An account I'd never heard of. "Where the hell did this come from?" I demanded, rage bubbling under my skin. "I don't know yet," Gumo replied evenly. "But it wasn't declared in the joint financials you gave me, and that's not all." He tapped another file. "Emails between her and her lawyer, Alvaro Torres. They're planning to corner you with a divorce agreement that leaves you stripped bare. They even reference tax forms you signed. Ring a bell?" My heart sank. Months ago, Laura had waved papers at me, calling them tax refund documents. I hadn't read them. I was exhausted, overworked. And I trusted her. "I signed them," I admitted, fists clenching until the tendons burned. "I didn't check. Goddamn fool." He didn't scold me, just nodded once. If they're fraudulent, it could turn against her. But I need more. "Can you get access to her email, her files?" I shook my head. "She guards her passwords. I've never snooped." His gaze hardened. "Then start. If you want to survive, you'll have to play her game." The words cut deep. Spying wasn't my nature, but she had long since crossed every boundary. If she wanted war, I could learn the weapons. The next days were a torment of pretense. I smiled, spoke of trivialities, even brushed her shoulder when she passed, all while waiting for the crack in her armor. My nights stretched into anxious vigils. Then one evening, fate cracked the door open. Laura was in the shower when I saw her laptop glowing on the table. My pulse thundered. I sat down, hands trembling, and slipped into her email. I didn't know what I sought until I found it. A thread of messages with Torres. Cold, merciless words. Maximize assets. Leave Robert with nothing. My name reduced to an obstacle. And then, one line that twisted my gut. A mention of an emergency fund hidden in another bank. The 47,000. Proof of the knife she had been sharpening for my back. I snapped pictures with my phone, hands trembling, before the water from the shower stopped hissing. Seconds later, I sent them to Gumo. His reply came instantly, terse and electric. Good job. This is gold. But then another message, colder, warning, do not be reckless. She cannot know you're watching. That was the impossible part. Laura's instincts were sharp as knives. She had started to study me, to sense the shift in my silence. Over dinner one night, she skewered me with a look that lasted too long. Are you all right? Her voice was honey-sweet, poisonous in its disguise. Just tired, I muttered, slicing through my food without meeting her eyes. She didn't press, but her gaze lingered, burning the back of my neck. Meanwhile, Gumo pushed forward with merciless efficiency. He told me he had hired a private investigator to trace Laura's hidden financial movements. I didn't ask how he managed it. I didn't care. For the first time in months, someone was standing beside me. A week later, the divorce papers landed in my hands. Laura gave them to me herself, her expression painted with fake sorrow. It's for the best, Robert, she said, as if she were breaking bad news to a child. We just don't work anymore. I said nothing. I took the papers and shut myself away. That night, under the harsh light of my desk lamp, I went through them with Gumo over a video call. The words on the page gutted me. She wanted the house, our savings, my Mustang, even my retirement fund. Torres had drafted it as if I were a shadow in my own life, a man who had contributed nothing while she built everything. Every clause was a dagger. This is a sham, Gumo snapped, fury sparking in his voice. Don't panic. We have enough to burn their case to ashes. The court assigned me a public defender, Douglas. Apathetic, distracted, barely flipping through the documents. His advice, negotiate. Negotiate. With wolves who had already decided how to strip me to the bone. I told Gumo. He laughed, dry and sharp. Forget that puppet. I'll handle it. You? Can you even represent me? I thought you only touched corporate cases. I can, he said. And I will. This isn't business. This is personal. For the first time, I felt a pulse of hope. From that moment, Gumo built the defense like a general planning war. He demanded every detail, every nail I hammered into the house, every receipt from the Mustang's restoration. He unearthed security footage from the garage camera I'd installed. On it, Laura and her friend Brenda laughed about the divorce as if it were a joke. Hearing their voices again twisted my gut, but Gumo's eyes gleamed as he filed it away. This will hit like a hammer in court, he said. But don't grow cocky. Laura and Torres won't fold easily. The nights leading up to the trial hollowed me out. I couldn't eat. Sleep slipped away. At home, Laura drifted through the rooms like an actress rehearsing lines. Her smiles were glacial now, her tone dripping with insinuations. One night, she dared to propose a peaceful agreement. There's nothing to discuss, I cut her off. My voice was sharper than I intended. See you in court. Then I left for the workshop, preferring the company of cold steel to her rehearsed affection. The trial came too soon. I wore my old suit, stiff at the shoulders, and walked into the courthouse with my nerves shredded. Laura arrived with Torres at her side, their confidence radiating like perfume. She didn't glance at me. Torres, predator-like, smirked as if victory were already his. For a moment, I thought I was finished. Then Gumo strode in, briefcase in hand, radiating that lethal calm. The judge squinted. "And you are?" "Guillermo Vargas," he said, voice steady as stone. "Representing Robert." The silence in the room cracked. Laura paled. Torres's smirk faltered. No one had expected this. And then the war began. Gumo unloaded evidence like artillery fire. The hidden bank statements, the secret emails, the garage video. Each word dismantled their narrative piece by piece. He showed how Laura had concealed the $47,000, how she and Torres plotted to rob me blind. He even produced a professional appraisal of the Mustang, proving its worth, alongside every receipt I had scraped together for the house improvements. Each exhibit wasn't just a defense, it was an accusation, a mirror reflecting Laura's betrayal for the whole courtroom to see. Torres struck back, but every argument fell flat, flimsy as paper. Gumo dismantled him with surgical precision, stripping away his defenses until he looked less like a seasoned lawyer and more like a novice fumbling through his first case. Laura sat beside him in silence, her eyes fixed on the floor. For the first time, I saw her cracks. Vulnerability. A flicker of doubt behind her practiced mask. The judge took notes, face unreadable, but I felt a surge of something I hadn't tasted in weeks. Relief. Adrenaline. Maybe, just maybe, I had a fighting chance. When the session ended, Gumo placed a steady hand on my shoulder. "This isn't finished," he said, voice calm. "But we're winning ground." That night, drained yet restless, I sat in the garage staring at my Mustang. The smell of oil and leather steadied me. I hadn't won, not yet, but for the first time, I believed I could. With Gumo at my side, Laura had no idea what storm was gathering. The following days were taut as wire. The trial resumed a week later, and Gumo fed me updates with each new revelation. He had unearthed text messages between Laura and Brenda, cold exchanges about selling the house quickly once the divorce went through. And then the nail. An email to Torres where Laura wrote that Robert won't matter. He doesn't have the means to fight. Every word she had typed became another weapon, another brick sealing her own coffin. Even Douglas, the useless public defender assigned to me, called one evening. His voice was tinged with awe. "I've never seen a case built like this," he admitted. I told him simply, "Don't worry, Gumo has it under control." At home, though, life was unbearable. Laura still played her role, moving through the kitchen, smiling, pouring wine, as if the marriage weren't rotting from within. But her eyes betrayed her, darting toward me with suspicion, narrowing as though she could sense I wasn't the same man she had toyed with. One night, she tried again to lure me into false peace. She sat at the table, glass of wine in hand, her voice soft with practiced calm. "Robert, it doesn't have to be war. We can divide things and move on." I met her gaze holding back the fire that clawed at my throat. "There is no agreement, Laura. See you in court." Her face stiffened. For an instant, fear flickered in her eyes, vanishing almost as quickly as it came. She knew something was slipping from her control. She just didn't know how much. I left her there and shut myself in the garage. It was the only place in that house that still felt like mine. The final day of trial dawned gray and heavy. I rose early, pulled on the same worn suit, and drove to the courthouse with my stomach in knots. But outside, Gumo met me, his calm presence cutting through my nerves. "Let's finish this," he said, his voice laced with steel. Inside, Laura and Torres no longer radiated confidence. She wouldn't meet my eyes. He shuffled his notes with uncharacteristic haste. The judge entered. Gumo rose. What followed was mastery. He laid the evidence before the court with unshakable precision. The bank statements, the hidden transfers, the emails plotting my ruin, the video of Laura and Brenda laughing at my expense. Each piece struck like a hammer. Then came his ace, an independent appraisal of the Mustang, valuing it at $60,000, far more than Laura's lie, and proof, documented and irrefutable, that I had funded 70% of the house improvements with my salary. Torres scrambled, claiming Laura had been the primary provider, that my contributions were negligible. Gumo's smile was cold, lethal. If that's true, counselor, why did your client hide $47,000 in a secret account? Why lie about the assets she claimed were joint? The judge leaned forward, interest sharpened. Torres flushed crimson. Laura sat pale, fists clenched in her lap, her silence screaming louder than words. Gumo pressed on, tearing down their case piece by piece. Receipts, invoices, before and after photos of the Mustang's restoration. Each exhibit was a blow, each sentence another fracture in Laura's armor. By the time closing arguments arrived, Torres mumbled about fairness and Laura's needs. His voice lacked conviction. Then Gumo stood, and the courtroom stilled. My client, Gumo began, his voice steady and resonant, has been the victim of an attempted fraud. Laura concealed assets, forged a narrative with manipulated documents, and orchestrated this divorce with the clear intent of leaving Robert with nothing. Not only does he deserve to keep what is rightfully his, she must also face the consequences of her deception. The judge scribbled notes, his expression unreadable, then dismissed us to the hallway while he deliberated. Those 20 minutes stretched into eternity. I sat with my legs shaking uncontrollably, unable to breathe steady. Across the corridor, Laura whispered with Torres, their heads bent close, their voices low. She shot me a glance, sharp, unreadable, somewhere between venom and fear. Gumo, in contrast, leaned against the wall, scrolling through his phone with the serenity of a man waiting for a train. When the clerk finally called us back, my heart nearly stopped. The judge didn't waste words. His voice was crisp, surgical. After reviewing the evidence, it is clear there was a deliberate attempt to conceal assets and manipulate the proceedings. The ruling is as follows. Robert retains ownership of the marital home, both vehicles, including the Ford Mustang, and his retirement fund. Laura is ordered to return the hidden sum of $47,000, pay an additional fine of $10,000 for financial fraud, and cover the legal costs of both parties. Laura gasped aloud, her mask cracking. Torres froze, color draining from his face. I sat stunned, barely able to process it. Then I felt Gumo's hand grip my arm, a silent squeeze. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. We had won. I walked out of that courthouse dizzy with relief, adrenaline, and something dangerously close to joy. Gumo led me to a nearby bar, where for the first time in years we sat as brothers, not adversaries. The beer loosened the silence of 7 wasted years. He told me about his travels, the battles of his career. I told him about the workshop, about the kids I taught, about how steel and engines had kept me alive when people had not. For a moment, the past didn't matter. Why? I finally asked him, glass in hand. After everything, why help me? He shrugged, a ghost of a smile on his lips. Because you're my brother, and I wasn't going to let them drown you. When I got home that night, Laura was already gone. Her belongings vanished, her presence scrubbed from the house. The silence was profound, but it felt clean. Mine again. I sat in the garage staring at the Mustang under its soft light, and for the first time in weeks, a real smile broke through. The months that followed buried Laura beneath the weight of her own lies. The trial scandal leaked into her professional circle. Clients turned their backs. She lost her job. Brenda, once her closest ally, slipped away when things grew toxic. But the lowest point came one night when she returned, drunk, screaming, pounding on my door. Her voice was hoarse with rage, accusing me of destroying her life. She tried to smash the garage window, but I called the police. They arrested her. Now she lives under probation and a restraining order. Her war was over. Mine, on the other hand, had just begun again. The workshop is my refuge, my sanctuary of sparks and steel. My students keep my days filled, and my nights belong to the Mustang, polished to a shine that feels like victory itself. My retirement is intact, My house is mine. And best of all, I have my brother back. Every weekend, Gumo comes by. He knows nothing about welding, but he sits on an upturned crate, talking, laughing, telling stories while I work. Recently, he convinced me to take the Mustang to a classic car show. We won third place, and I swear I've never seen him so elated, clapping me on the back like a proud coach. Now, my ritual is simple. Driving down the highway with the Mustang's engine roaring, the wind in our faces, and my brother in the passenger seat. We talk about everything and nothing, as if 7 years of silence had never existed. Laura tried to destroy me. In the end, she destroyed herself. And me? I got my house, my car, my pride, my brother, my life back. Every time I turn the Mustang's key, the engine answers with a growl that feels like justice itself. And I know it was all worth it.